All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to this live stream. I'm Chris Kalpi, the founder of the Rapamycin Longevity Lab, where we take mTOR inhibitors to the next level. And this we do by developing mTOR inhibitor-based combinational therapies. The reason why we focus on this is that we think that combinational therapies is the way forward to really push the boundaries of human longevity and come closer to the state of radical life extension. So we are not so interested in just adding some few years or decades to our lifespan. We want to explore and push things much further than that. Yes, before we start, I just want to highlight also that everything we say in this live stream should not be seen as medical or financial advice. It's only for educational purposes only. So always consult professionals in the relevant areas because, things can go wrong. So take it seriously. Yeah, today we have two great guests here. We have Gillian Casalini, who is the co-founder of Pump Science. Pump Science is a DeSci platform to accelerate and fund longevity research in a totally new way. And Rapamycin Longevity Lab is also pushing many of its longevity interventions through their pipeline. So big thumbs up for that. We have also Girish Harinat here with us. And he is a scientific communicator at the longevity clinic Ageless RX. The thing that I really like with Ageless RX is that they don't just provide longevity medicine to people. They are also conducting longevity research, longevity clinical trials, and by that they are pushing the field forward in different ways. So big thumbs up also for all the great work Ageless RX is doing. I can also highlight that Girish is a clinical and scientific advisor for Rapamycin Longevity Lab. So big welcome to the stream.
Awesome, Chris.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me on. I am always so honored to be in the room with both of you guys. You are some of the best and brightest minds in the space, and it's such an honor to be here. And I'm really excited to dig into what you guys are up to with partial reprogramming here and talk about too the role that Pump Science is playing in some of that. So it should be a great combo. But again, it's always a pleasure to be with you guys.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's about the community, right? It's about the support systems that we have. And cellular reprogramming, partial cellular reprogramming is one of the most inspiring and high potential technologies in the field. So excited to really dive into it.
Yeah, and that we can say also that in today's live stream, we are going to look at the groundbreaking longevity intervention, cellular reprogramming. And this is also one intervention that the Rapamycin Longevity Lab, together with the Reprogramming Lab, has launched on Pump Science. And the token for that intervention is TREX. Can you, Girish, talk a little bit about what cellular reprogramming is and what is special with our TREX token? Oh, he's...
Might have gotten disconnected.
Okay, but But okay, maybe I can say some words about it. When it comes to cellular reprogramming, the thing that is super exciting with cellular reprogramming is that if we look, for example, in every cell, then there seems to exist a little bit like a rewind button within them. And researchers have discovered a way to push this rewind button. And when they push this rewind button, then they can make an old cell, let's say, for example, an old skin cell. Then they can, by pressing this button, they can rewind the age of that cell to a younger state of cell. They can even make the cell to a very young cell, like an embryo cell. So, and that is a super interesting longevity intervention that was, I think it was discovered a little bit more than 10 years ago. And the person who discovered that you could rewind a cell, he got even a Nobel Prize for it. And then this research has been developed step by step forward. And they have also found different ways of making it safer, and also that they have found ways to, instead of instead of manipulating the cell genetically, you can trigger this push on the rewind button by compounds, by chemically. And this, by using chemicals to push this button, that is something which I think it was, that research is like a couple of years old. So it's super new, cutting edge research here. That type of longevity intervention we have now launched on Pump Science. And let's see, I see that Girish is back here.
Sorry about that.
No problem. I have talked a little bit about TREX and reprogramming, and maybe you have some other parts to include there.
Yeah, thanks for this. No, the reason I'm so excited about partial cellular reprogramming is it follows this theory of aging, which is actually supported by a large body of evidence that our cells contain the information, right? Like all of the cells in our body, our brain cells, our liver, our heart cells, all contain the same DNA. But what makes a heart cell, pumping blood and conducting electricity in order to do that, is the specific genes it activates. And as organs age, as an organism ages, this gene expression kind of drifts. It goes off track. And in a large way, aging is an identity crisis, right? We all experience that as we get older, where the cells and organs start losing the ability to function the way they're supposed to. And this causes age-related decline, right? But inherently within this model is this acknowledgement, this realization that, you know, these genes exist, these quality control systems, these functional programs still exist in our organs, and in our cells, but they just lose track of how to express them appropriately with age over time, right? And with epigenetic reprogramming, first, you might have mentioned this with Dr. Yamanaka in 2012. He won a Nobel Prize for discovering these 4 transcription factors, right? These proteins that in a large way control gene expression, the conversion of DNA into RNA, the expression of genes. He found these 4 transcription factors through a large screen of, I believe, hundreds of factors that were able to reverse the age of an old skin cell into this pluripotent stem cell, the stem cell that can it loses its identity. So it's no longer a skin cell, but it can now turn into any cell in the body. And in the process of reversing the identity of the old skin cell, it actually turned the cell young again, right? So this whole concept of partial cellular reprogramming was adopted by the longevity field in a way to build a strategy so that we can reverse the age of the skin of the cell without changing its identity, right? In that original experiment, when they used an old skin cell, what if instead of rewinding the clock back and taking it back into a stem cell, we can rewind the clock back so it's a younger skin cell, right? Or a younger brain cell, etc. So that's generally the premise behind it. And there are a number of different biotechnology companies, including very well-funded multi-billion-dollar companies like Altos Labs, backed by Jeff Bezos, as well as other really leading-edge companies like Retro Biosciences and Altos and Reprogram Labs, which are pushing these technologies forward to find what is that magical set of factors at the appropriate dosages, used at the appropriate timing, so that we can rewind the cell's age back, help it find its young identity again, because inherently we know it's in there. And I I think it's always important to have a proof of concept, right? Otherwise it sounds very science fiction. How do we know that this can work? I mean, Dr. Yamanaka showed it can work to revert an old skin cell into a stem cell, but how do we know that it can work to revert an old cell into a young cell? Well, I mean, nature provides us that evidence. And a really good example of this that I like is, when as we age, our reproductive organs age, our embryos or sperm age. And I think I'll use women as an example. Embryos age so that if a woman is 40 years old, then her embryos, her ovaries are also 40 years old, or maybe slightly older. They age alongside of her. But it turns out that during fertilization, right, you'd expect that when there's fertilization, if you take an aged embryo and you fertilize it, that baby would still acquire all the damages and the age-related dysfunctions that occurred in that old embryo. But it turns out during fertilization process, there's actually this partial cellular reprogramming that goes on in which all the age-related damages in the embryo are reversed. So now the 40 years of damages and dysfunctions that have accumulated are reversed back into a young state. And that's why a newborn baby is youthful and young and can go through those developmental stages again. So nature shows us that it's possible. Biology already knows how to reset our age. And really our job is learning how to do it effectively, right? Engineering our way to doing it safely and effectively.
Yeah, and just to really push on what you said. So if you think when you are born, then you have lots of different cells, and every year you age older, your cell accumulates different damage step by step. And as you said, when one person or two persons wants to get a child, then all the damage that those people have will not be inherited down to the child that is born. The child will have like a reset of the cellular mechanism. So it will start in a young state. So if you, for example, have a age-related disease like, let's say, diabetes or something like that, then the child will not be born with diabetes. But it can, of course, have some impact, but it will be in a much younger state, and the damage will be gone. So that is a super interesting thing and a groundbreaking thing. If we can get this intervention working, then I would say that this is probably the closest thing when it comes to radical life extension.
Yeah.
So we are not just talking about adding some few years or decades to lifespan, as I talked about. We are really pushing things forward here.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting too, you guys are, kind of pulling on the different approaches to this reprogramming, because part of what I also think about is like the scalability of it. I feel like from a chemical standpoint, depending on, what compounds ultimately work, I would think that the accessibility would be far greater to more people, as opposed to, some of the more like in lab, I'm not sure what the right word would be, but like more like actual physical reprogramming. So to me, I think even too, as you think about like how important this research is, not only finding ways in which it works, but then, the big other benefit of it would also be accessibility to a huge market of people. A lot of times in the drug space, as you can imagine, like dosing and administration are so important and can really play a role in how many people can take it, adherence, and even like cost and accessibility. So part of that, it's certainly, there's an assumption baked in there that we do find something that is successful at this chemical reprogramming. But to me, that is a huge opportunity as well, as we think about, I think part of the optics of like the longevity space is, a lot of people who have a lot of money are really interested in figuring out, how do I live forever? But it really is a question that should be, asked and accessible by all of us. So, it's definitely something down the line. But yeah, as we sit here and talk about like what this could actually mean, for me, I woke up and I took a handful of supplements this morning, and one of those, maybe someday could be a chemical partial reprogramming supplement that I add to my stack. So just a different take, but yeah, I love the application of it in terms of like the real world, what this could mean for people like all of us on this call, people watching this, and really it could end up very much in your hands someday.
And that maybe you can talk about a little bit, Girish, because that is a super great point which you highlight, Yelan, that if we compare, for example, genetic reprogramming with chemical reprogramming, the cost, the scaling, can you talk a little bit about that, Girish, what big opportunities exist there?
Absolutely. And I mean, I don't think we were live at the point, but we started off this conversation talking about like how exciting 2026 is. And I think one of the reasons, especially for partial cellular reprogramming, one of the major reasons is because of the amazing research that Reprogram Labs has done, right? One of their biggest values, one of the the shining aspects of this organization is that they're using these chemical factors, and there's so many logistical resource challenges that go on with gene therapies, which is how the field has conventionally and even now been pushing forward this technology, that having a different modality, being able to use chemical based factors, some of them FDA approved interventions or natural compounds that can recapitulate or replicate these effects, just completely changes the ballgame, right? Because it makes it now possible. It makes it actionable. It makes it more able to go into the clinic within a meaningful time frame in a resource effective way to get to humans quicker, right? And when you think about such a technology that has a potential to reverse aspects of age-related decline, it sounds science fiction, but then as soon as you look at the pragmatic aspects of chemical factors being able to do this, suddenly, my adrenaline goes up and I freeze, because it's like, holy cow, this is now possible. I see a path, right? So just to talk about some of the differences, right? We mentioned before, conventionally, most of these companies, most of the laboratory studies use therapy in order to conduct cellular reprogramming, partial cellular reprogramming. And Reprogram Labs, what they did in affiliation with Harvard and some other big institutes was show that, we can use chemical factors to mimic these effects that were able to be achieved with these partial cellular reprogramming gene therapies, right? And now it's very much in early preclinical stages, but what's really exciting about Reprogram Labs coming to Pump Science is this is like the perfect setting, the perfect environment to be able to transition through the preclinical studies and move into the clinic through a platform where, you know, they can get the necessary attention and resources and move much quicker, right? One of the big factors, the differences between genetic-based partial reprogramming and chemical-based is safety, right? Before we even go into logistics and resources, safety is big. With gene therapeutics, the genes can get integrated into your own genome. It can be harder to control the expression of the genes, so that, you know, one of the big issues with cellular reprogramming is it's very easy to push it too far, right? It's very easy to take a cell from an old cell all the way back into a stem cell. And when it's a stem cell, suddenly it can become a tumor. And it actually forms this really heinous type of tumor called a teratoma, which is basically this beast of an organism, really, that has like teeth and nails, and it takes on different identities, right? So it's a very nasty type of tumor that can form if you push back the reprogramming too far, right? With chemical factors, you have more precise control, just like you do with small molecules and peptides. You have more control over dosing and regimen than a gene therapy. Another big difference is cost, right? We know, especially with monogenic disorders, so like genetic diseases that are driven by a single gene mutation, there's been a lot of successes, especially last year even, for being able to help treat these conditions, in some cases partially cure these conditions with single gene therapies, but they're extremely costly, costing, you know, for the patient hundreds of thousands to $1 million+ as well as in terms of development and moving through clinical trials. There's a lot of regulatory barriers in place, so it takes a lot of time. There's a lot of costs for R&D and manufacturing. And when you think about chemical factors, especially if they're already FDA-approved interventions, natural compounds, there's really a low cost to this research and pushing it through clinical studies as well. So there's the costs, there's the regulatory barriers, there's a safety, and then Jillian, as you mentioned, there's a scalability. With gene therapies, you know, we're able to deploy them effectively to people who need them because they're effective for individuals that are, you know, addressing individuals with rare diseases, which is, you know, progeria or sickle cell anemia or things like that. When they affect a small portion of the population, you can get this therapeutic to them. But when we're thinking about deploying something at large scale, if it's effective, being able to do that in a costly way is huge. And that's another thing that these chemical reprogramming factors allow you to do. I'm not sure if I missed anything there, but those are the key factors from, Krista, you have an amazing table that you posted on LinkedIn and Twitter that really highlight Reprogram Labs and what they can do with this technology.
Let's see if we can take a look at this one. Yeah, first this one here, Pump Science, the platform. We see here we have the different intervention listed, and currently we have the TREX intervention at the 8th place if we look at the market cap here. So can open that up also.
And I think for folks who might not be familiar with what Pump Science is and what they're looking at, basically the screen that Krista just showed is a list of compounds that individuals have submitted on Pump Science. And it ultimately uses a decentralized funding mechanism to raise research funding for these compounds. And then ultimately what happens is we take the compounds once they reach funding milestones and we put them through our you can think of it as like centralized research infrastructure. So we take the compounds and we actually initiate them in various in vivo research studies. There is a C. elegans study, fly studies, and then mouse studies as well. So really what this screen is all of the ideas, all of the compounds that have been submitted, and then you can see the funding levels that each compound has achieved. And then, like I mentioned, once we hit those funding targets, then we work with various labs that we have arrangements with to actually initiate the studies. So I think there's about 85 compounds. There could be more on there that have been submitted, but basically an open way to allow folks to put their ideas on there and get funding for research and start it relatively quickly.
No. No, this has been a platform that has helped Rapamycin Longevity Lab to really push forward our different interventions, and we are building up a premium portfolio of different high impact interventions together with advisory team with different scientific advisors. So, and one of our leading tokens is doxycycline, but the most exciting token that we have is the cellular reprogramming token TREX. And you talked about we have some lifespan data. If we look also on reprogramming that Rapamycin Longevity Lab has gathered. So if you go into Rapamycin Longevity Lab and then click on LID. LID stands for Longevity Intervention Database. And this database is a database that Rapamycin Longevity Lab is behind. And we have gathered, let's see how many data points we have here. More than 2,600 data points.
Wow, you guys, that's incredible.
I think we are the second largest lifespan database currently, and the goal is to be number one here. So this year, let's see if we can take the position number one here. And the thing we have done here is that we have gathered all lifespan data that exist on reprogramming. This is also unique because no one has done this before, and we have data in mice, we have data in worms, and that's the data we have. Do you want to say something about this data, Girish?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking through this right now, but I mean, look at some of these numbers. There seems to be a lot of variability, right? And I think part of that is the type of intervention that's used, right? And this is really where the magic is happening right now. Is these different labs trying, kind of in the race to see what are the different combinations of compounds, doses, and applications, right? Because as we mentioned before, if reprogramming goes on all the time, you have the risk or the danger of really reverting cells back into a cancer type state where they can, they lose their identity. So that's really in a big way. We're trying to find what the Goldilocks zone is, and look at the top of the list right here. And this is super interesting. 2C, which is TREX, Repsox, and tranylcypromine, is 48% median lifespan extension. I think that might be, Krista, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that might be even larger than what Aubrey has seen with the robust mouse rejuvenation project so far, where he's combining multiple different interventions together, mTOR inhibitors, programming factors, other interventions, where his main goal is a proof of concept that we can really extend mouse lifespan appreciably, significantly. And this 48% increase is super encouraging. Let's see if it can replicate across these preclinical studies on pump.science in the arena, right? That's where you really want to see it with transparent, open information. And
the interesting thing here is also that this data point, this is most likely not even optimized dose. So there are lots of different opportunities here to even optimize the dose protocol in different ways. So if they get this, I think they only tested one dose on this, and they got this remarkable result. So yeah, they're yes.
And they started with 7 compounds. That's really important. I mean, they screened many more than that, but they started with 7 compounds, and then they found their way to 2 compounds that were able to effectively, mimic those partial reprogramming effects. And when I say mimic those effects, I mean it. Right now it's pretty undeniable and incontroversial that these programming factors can rejuvenate cells, right? Like we see it on a genetic level, we see it on a transcriptomic level, we see it in terms of healthy gene expression. And then in the lab, you see results like this, where there's that cellular rejuvenation translates to a near 50% median lifespan extension. And what's not often talked about, but it's also very important, are the health span effects, right? With these studies, I think in C. elegans, they may have seen improvements in mobility and reproductive lifespan. In mouse studies, other labs have seen improvements in like skin and cognitive function. So these are, as we start thinking about engaging with interventions like this, it's not only about lifespan. Of course, there could be ways to really rejuvenate function of the skin or youthful appearance and the brain and cognitive function. So these are the types of indications we're going to be paying very close attention to as Reprogram Labs moves through the lifespan preclinical studies and uses that information to inform clinical studies.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think is really cool about the research that we're doing is there is almost like a lifespan constant. And then at various time points as well, we do through the Pump Science Research Protocol, we also do other studies that you can layer in on top of that. So for example, in mice specifically, we're looking at a Y-maze study for cognition. There's a grip strength study to measure strength. There's an open field study that looks at overall movement, and you can use that to, the more a mouse moves, the younger, more energy that it may have. There's also anxiety that you can deduce from that. But there's a lot of different ways that we're thinking about layering in studies on top of the longevity component as well. But it will be really cool to see, to your point, Girish, like if you can, not only tap into the long-term benefit, right, but like what else can be layered in on top. I think people who are thinking about health and wellness, or there's a lot of people who, one thing that we think about on the pump science side is longevity for us is a huge part of our mission. But some people want to be, more into that kind of health span. Like I want to stay healthier longer. I want to be the best version of myself longer, where other people are more like, I want to live forever. So there's kind of 2 different approaches, but if you can find benefit in both arenas, there's a lot of breadth that you can cover for a specific compound. It's really cool.
Yeah, and the interesting thing also, if we look at the health span parts, is that one thing in which the longevity field is really digging quite a lot in is to find different biomarkers, measurements, to see and verify that the longevity intervention works or not, because lifespan studies take quite a long time to conduct. So if we can find, for example, some type of set of biomarkers and measurements that can hint that, okay, here we have a really powerful longevity intervention, and that we can verify within 1 month or something, that will really accelerate the longevity research forward. So it's a very great thing that Pump Science is gathering lots of data to be able to do things like this. So.
And to that point, just to yes and that, I mean, the fact that you had mentioned, Jillian, that 80 plus compounds more, a lot of people think, within the game, it's who extends lifespan the most, right? That seems to be the high level point. But what a lot of people will realize if they continue to listen to these conversations is that, you know, 2 compounds can extend lifespan by 60%, 70%, but maybe one of the compounds improves cognitive function more. Maybe something like Raptor improves muscle strength and grip strength and performance. Maybe something like doxycycline and rapamycin improve hair quality and skin quality. So yes, there's this lifespan component of it, but the value of testing so many compounds is that you can address multiple different aspects of health. There's 80 plus different organs in our body, and it's hard to find a panacea, a magic bullet that's going to address everything. Although partial cellular reprogramming is super intriguing in that respect. But that's one of the reasons we're also Rapamycin Longevity Lab investing in a premium portfolio, is because yes, doxycycline took king of the pill in worms for lifespan extension, but we're testing, you know, how do these compounds address, you know, hair restoration and rejuvenation? How does it address cognitive function or immune health? So being able to, as you mentioned, you woke up and took a handful of supplements or however it may be.
A handful.
There may be a real, I mean, I think the end goal is, what is the strategy, right? What interventions at what timing? Something like partial cellular reprogramming, maybe you only need it once a year, once every other year, while there's a daily supplement or intervention that you can take to improve, you know, vascular function or performance. There's a timing component to it as well. So I think this is what pump science really allows us to do in a way that, you know, me coming from academia and then moving into more human and clinical focused work, I haven't seen anything like this, where it allows you to so robustly and openly and transparently move projects forward, and not any projects, but high risk, high reward projects as well. That's huge, because the powers that be aren't really invested in that currently.
Yeah, you know, part of what I think is so fascinating is, even at like the top of this call, we rattled off some various organizations that are doing research in the space. And I think, you know, as you think about consumers or people that are interested in longevity, or maybe interested in just overall like science, there's not really like a one-stop shop where it feels like you can kind of go and see everything and see all of the results and find, you know, really what is, you know, interesting and intriguing to you, and follow the science and the experiments. It kind of pops up in press releases or at certain moments. And what I think is really, you know, cool about what we're doing is we're bringing together, you know, the best and brightest minds and a community around them, and people are able to really and truly follow along on these experiments. We're constantly trying to make things go as fast as science will let us, and technology. There is the platform component as well to make it fun and engaging. But you know, I really feel like for the first time, there's a lot of individuals who have been following research and experiments and ideas from like inception to results, which is so cool to me. Because like I said, you might be in how things are done today, you might see a biotech press release like a year from now, kind of putting it all together. So yeah, to bring people along on that journey and do it with all of the ideas and minds out in the open. You know, I think one thing that's also been super cool is to see how a lot of different people are thinking about tackling longevity and health span, and actually watching you guys work together and kind of go back and forth on ideas and approaches. So that's a whole part of our you know, our mission and our vision is actually doing this together will go farther than doing this alone.
No, but that is a very good point there, because this comes also down to what the DSI is all about, is that we as a community push this research forward. And then we have a platform like Pump Science, where this research can be done together. So Rapamycin Longevity Lab is not doing this in isolation. We are collaborating with the different dev teams on Pump Science, and by that we are moving things forward in a faster way. So yeah, it's a really, really great collaborative environment, and it's growing step by step.
Yeah.
Well, and you guys are a huge part of, you know, I remember when, Krister, I feel like we started to talk about the idea, I guess it was like a year ago now, maybe a year and some change. And it's just crazy to see how far we've come in conversations with you and Girish, and actually getting ideas launched on Pump Science, research underway. So it's all happened really, really fast. But what excites me is that, for people who, I know we're streaming on a few different platforms, but for people who may not be as familiar with Pump Science, it really hinges on like ideas. And so what's cool is there's not, like just one idea that you guys are trying or one compound. It's been really cool to see you guys really think about this as like infrastructure, and like, how can you bring, a lot of different ideas and approaches to the platform and get research underway, and also do it simultaneously. I feel like a lot of times, you kind of take one idea and push it along, and then maybe it comes to the end of the road or a fork in the road, but actually getting multiple ideas and research underway to allow it to really grow from the very beginning. So appreciate you guys really, jumping into our ecosystem and bringing the ideas. You've been a huge accelerant, and also, really bringing other scientific minds to the space. We're just so grateful to have you guys. And with TREX, I'm so excited to see how this plays out. There will be a lot of learnings no matter what. And yeah, if we can replicate the data that we have here and have additional findings on top from like a performance standpoint, it'll be a really cool to build out this body of evidence. And hopefully bring it to the market.
Yeah, definitely. And if we can reproduce this or even get a higher lifespan data than this, then it will be viewed by many people in the field. So and one next step that we have now, I think it's in the end of next week, then we will get warm data on TREX on Pump Science. Can you talk a little bit about that, Gillian?
Yeah, so you can think of Pump Science as kind of having two sides. There's really like the idea and the research side, and then there's this, gamification and experience side. And so the whole ethos of Pump Science is not only doing the research, but also showing people and, actually bringing people along in the science. And a huge part of doing that is for us making the science fun and turning it into, something that people can participate in. So part of the experience on Pump Science is actually these data drops. And so at various times, what we do is we actually take the research and we pack it together into streams. Now, not all of our research, I would say, is packaged together in one simultaneous drop. We do that with C. elegans, the lab that we work with. Initiating and getting those experiments underway. Biology can be hard to control, so we want to make sure that those experiments can be done, conducted, and QC'd before we stream them. But what we do is we actually take about a month-long experiment, could be longer depending on the lifespan of the C. elegans, and we actually compress that into we've changed the time a few times, but about a 15-minute stream where we release the data and we show it to everybody live at one point in time. And then the data is made available. So people can go on the site, they can download it themselves. They can actually see, the Kaplan-Meier curves and really see how the experiments played out. So it's a lot of fun to watch the science results stream live. Everyone's seeing it for the first time. Again, these are experiments that have completed, but we release it at a moment in time. And so that's what Krister is referring to, is we hopefully soon will have the worm data that we can stream on TREX. So the whole world will get to see the outcomes of these C. elegans studies. So it'll be really exciting to see. And then from there, we have the next animal model is flies. And we have a similar experience where we stream the fly data on our site. And then we have fly races where we actually do some performance tests in the flies to see, do these compounds make the flies fly farther, fly faster? And then we also are building out a gamified experience on the mouse study side as well. So really excited to see the C. elegans data. again, as I mentioned, it's a lot of fun to actually watch the reveal all at once. And we invite everyone to come and participate, but you are seeing the data just as we're all seeing it for the first time. So it's really cool for these grand reveals. And I know Krister has mentioned and Gears have mentioned this idea of king of the pill. And some people might be like, what on earth is king of the pill? At each animal stage of research, worms, flies, and mice, the way that Pump Science is designed is there is this gamification layer underneath. And king of the pill is our top performing compound in each animal model. So it's almost like a contest to see which compound will extend the lifespan of the animals the most. And what's been really cool is watching as there is a top performing compound scientifically dethroned. When there's a new one that takes its place, almost immediately, everybody's like, we're coming for that one. So it's been an interesting mechanism to accelerate sance, to give people a mission at each animal level, a goal of, a target to try and accomplish, and really, put the best and brightest minds together to try and advance the science in that animal model even further. So there is the token mechanism underneath that, where if you hold the king of the pill spot, you get a portion of tokens that an airdrop that launch on the Pump Science platform, basically trying to take you down until you are dethroned. So there's not only a scientific gamification component, but there's actually also a token component to that as well. So been a lot of fun to watch the changing of the guards when we have compounds up there and they are dethroned.
Yeah. So even if the dev teams are collaborating with each other, we are also a little bit competing with each other. So because we want to have the king of the pill throne.
It's a coveted spot. It's a coveted spot.
Yeah. Yes. One other thing we can mention is that we have launched the TREX website. The Reprogramming Lab has created this awesome website, which you can find on reprogramming.com. And here you can read a little bit more about cellular reprogramming. You can find a link to the TREX token. You can see some of the lifespan data. You can also find different studies about reprogramming. And there are some interesting data here to check out. So
it looks beautiful.
It's really nice.
Set.
And you can also follow them on X, LinkedIn, and contact them if you have any questions. So I think that is it for this live stream. I don't know if you guys have anything more to say.
I guess one thing I'll mention is, again, just emphasizing the value of this model, because I find myself thinking about it. It just like pops into my mind. That's how you know you're onto something, right, Jillian and Benji? When you get excited all of a sudden out of nowhere, your brain gets excited from thinking about progress with a platform or what it's doing. But like one of the things that has always been a thorn in my side, and for a lot of scientists, I've been in the field for 12, 13 years within academia, is this whole mentality of publish or perish, right? This whole idea of when you get negative data, a lot of times projects stop there. A lot of the reasons that the Alzheimer's disease field has been so hyper-focused on amyloid beta plaques is because there had been a lot of series of successes within that, and there hasn't been enough investments in other realms. And it turns out that a lot of that data was fabricated because of all these barriers and curtains, everything going on behind the veil. So it sets the field back, it sets progress back, and it affects real human lives, right? And with Pump Science, what I really love, and I see playing out in action just over the past, what feels like a long time, but I guess it's only been few months is, labs, ourselves included, hitting a wall with a particular dose of a drug, with a particular application in a specific model organism, and then modifying and coming back and optimizing, right? And that's what the scientific field needs, right? It needs the support. It needs that energy and momentum to be able to do something like that. The resources, of course, to be able to hit those walls and then tinker and then push the science forward. That's how evolution works, right? It hits walls, genes get mutated, biology is tinkered with, and then new organisms push forward and survive. And here we are today. And that's how you continue moving forward. That's what science needs. And that's what, in a large way, pump science allows by marrying, decentralized science, the crypto market and scientists within the field, within the longevity field, pushing these interventions forward. So just like a major kudos, because that was on my mind recently. And I think, 2026 is going to be so impactful in that way. Super excited about, Rapamycin Longevity Lab's plans in terms of our premium portfolio, how we're pushing existing tokens forward and others we have in the pipeline, and just, working at AegisRx, always at the center of my mind is, and I know this is true for a lot of the labs who are already starting companies within pump science, as well as Rapamycin Longevity Lab, like our end goal is bring this to the clinic, bring this to the people in the safest, most effective way possible. I think 2026 is going to bring some amazing things in that respect.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like you mentioned, there are moments where I wouldn't say it feels like a letdown, but when the data isn't maybe not exactly what people wanted it to be, or it didn't meet their expectations, to have an avenue to say like, well, let's try it again, and let's try it at this dose, and maybe we also try it at that dose, and then also, I know that there's organism specific nuances. And so what's been really cool is for people to say like, well, maybe that was something that was unique to C. elegans, and let's see how it plays out in flies. And then because these compounds are kind of moving, not all of them move, not all the experiments start at the same time and end at the same time, but because they're using the same, experiments, you are able to do some cross comparison that way as well. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of, customization, and you can take the rails and kind of use them for really what your objectives are, and then modify. But it's really, really cool to see, even for me, how quickly people have been able to take preliminary data, not preliminary, but from these animal models, and forecast it out to like, oh gosh, let's think about what this means in humans. Like, it could be positioned like this, or it could be positioned like that. So yeah, as the data just continues to progress and there's more ideas, more even combinations, more unlocks, the amount of hopefully like products and, companies that can come out of this is one thing that gets us really excited.
Yeah. And one thing, if we look, for example, at the products, which we talked a little bit about earlier, we have the chemical reprogramming part. That is a quite interesting product if we get it to work in humans after human clinical trials. Then that could be definitely something like Ageless RX and different longevity clinics will offer to their different customers, because that scales in a total different way than if we will use the genetic reprogramming, which is super costly, as we talked about earlier.
Great point.
I think it's definitely reminiscent of where we started at the top of the call, where all of us were like, 2026 feels like it's going to be a big year. And I'm excited. I'm so excited to see how it plays out. And, sometimes I do show up and think, though, like every single day, like, well, I'm still dying today, so I got a lot of work to do. So there's still a ton of work to be done. But I do think 2026 feels like absolutely a lot of progress will be made. And I know that it seems like longevity is like really catching fire mainstream, and to just be able to be a part of those conversations and have the ability to even not even be a part of them. Like I see all these posts coming up on LinkedIn of like different compounds people are interested in, or different supplements, and then to be able to reply with like, hey, we did this study, here's the data. Like it's not even just like talking in theory. It's like, hey, let me show you the study. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I know Girish needs to go away here, but it has been super great to have you both here and share all your great knowledge to the people. And follow Ageless RX, Pump Science, Rapamycin Longevity Lab, Reprogramming Lab, and see how we push things forward. So take care, everyone. And see you next live stream.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.